Welcome to a Business Life series brought to you by HubYuno. The inspiration for this series is best summed up by two of our favourite quotes. An investment in knowledge pays the best interest by Benjamin Franklin, and Warren Buffett's the best investment you can make is in yourself. The more you learn, the more you earn. In a Business Life series, we get business leaders from all sectors and walks of life to tell their stories. The hope is that you can learn from their success and failures and apply it to your own business journey. Today I'm talking with Stefan Thomas. His journey goes from working in a shoe shop to a director at a national networking business. I loved our chat and I'm sure you will too. Before we get started, let me just quickly tell you about what we do. Do you want to grow your small business but are put off by extortionate fees charged by marketing agencies or not sure where to start? We promise you that all the skills and techniques you need are learnable. At Uno, we give you agency level knowledge with ongoing support for a fraction of the cost with our HubYuno platform. Our online courses and webinars teach you the online marketing skills you need to grow your business. The bite-sized mobile-friendly video lessons fit in with your busy work schedule. The webinars provide our community with ongoing support to make continued marginal gains, test out new ideas and stay ahead. Try it for free with 2 courses and a selection of webinars. Just click sign up for free, search HubYuno, or click the link in the description if you are watching on YouTube. Hi Stefan, how are you today?
I'm good. It's been a busy day so far, and I've just come out of a meeting with someone who is involved in the Chambers of Commerce in Toronto, Canada. So yeah, it's been a busy and so far international day as well.
Oh, so yeah, well, that's the power of Zoom, isn't it?
Absolutely, it is.
I just noticed that we're wearing the same shirts, like great minds think alike.
And I'm known for turning up in flowery shirts, so today is a bit of a diversion for me. And we didn't speak last night and coordinate, did we? That was a mistake we made.
No. So what we usually do with these is start off with just you talking, kind of an elevator pitch for your business life story, like 30 seconds, a minute, just something like that. Just give us a brief overview of sort of where you started out in business, or even some people like to start sort of back in school, wherever you feel comfortable starting, and then we'll go from there.
Fine. So, hi, I'm Stefan Thomas. I'm the author of Business Networking for Dummies and some other books as well. My career in networking didn't start until 2007, but the more that I look back, my career in networking started in 1983 when I got my first job working in a shoe shop, Manfield Shoes in Cornmarket Street in Oxford, where I learned an awful lot of the stuff that I took forward into the rest of my business life. From 1988 through to 2007, I was an estate agent. That's what I did, man and boy, from when I left school and until 2007, having various local estate agency roles, and ultimately I was general manager of the Guild of Professional Estate Agents with 700 independent estate agencies around the UK. 2000 to 2003, that was what I did. 2007, my estate agency career came to an end, and a bit of a crashing end actually, and I reinvented myself. I bought a small local franchise magazine operation at that point, and started going to networking meetings, which wasn't something that I'd done before. Started going to networking meetings to promote my business. I got a bit of a reputation as being good at networking, more out of desperation, I think, than anything else. 3 or 4 years later, people started asking me to speak at their events and tell other people about networking. And cutting a very, very long story short, I live in Oxfordshire, but I ended up speaking at a big business event in London. And some of the guys in my audience were from Wiley, the publishers who own the For Dummies series of books. And later on that evening, they asked me if I'd be interested in writing for them. So from 1983, working in shoe shops, to 2013, when I got asked to write the book, that's pretty much everything that happened in between, almost.
So going back to the very start of it, I guess, starting at the very beginning of the journey. So working in a shoe shop. At that stage, did you have any idea what you wanted to do with your life, or was it just you thought, oh, you need some money, or was it, what was sort of thinking at that stage?
Yeah, I mean that's simple. I was 13 years old when you could get a Saturday job at that age, and I wanted to go on holiday, and my parents couldn't afford for me to go on holiday. Some friends of mine had invited me to go to Malta with them, but I would have to pay for my own flights and so on. So I got a Saturday job to fund that, but never realised the real value. Because my first pay packet was £73. I remember I was being paid 99 pence an hour. My first pay packet was £73, and I never realised that the bigger value I would get out of that is the education that I got back then in how to deal with people. I was intending to be a teacher. My careers advisor at school had me down as a primary school teacher, which is what I thought I was going to go on to do. And yeah, life turned out very differently from that.
No, it's interesting because I had a job at around that age as well. I was just washing out wetsuits and learned to listen to the other people in the shop sort of sell wetsuits and stuff like that. And kind of, and I actually think the rules have changed now, a little less flexible. But I reckon young people should be going out and getting Saturday jobs as much as possible, because it does teach you an awful lot about, from my personal point of view, when I was in them, like how to act with adults. Like you're seeing some of them struggle, or some of them do well, or like which ones move up to manager and why. And I think it kind of teaches you an awful lot. So it was from the shoe shop and then into what sort of the next stage it went to after that? So what was like the next jump?
Yeah, I guess I worked in a shoe shop for about 5 years. Then in 1987, I got another Saturday job. I was in sixth form by that point at Habitat, when Habitat opened in Oxfordshire. And absolutely bizarrely, my manager from Habitat back in 1987 then popped up in my networking circles around 2010. The wonderful Martin Green, who I knew as a 17-year-old, and as you said, learned a lot from Martin at that point about how adults acted, how adults in management acted. And then when I left school, when I finished my A levels, I didn't go to university route because I didn't do that well at my A levels, because I discovered pubs and girls and things like that. So I went straight into a job. I got a job with a local estate agent, which was my mum's idea, as it goes, and again ended up in that career for 20 years, only leaving estate agency during 2007.
So with estate agency, there's obviously, is the 2007 sort of leave with the financial crash and when things went very badly, like without diving too much into that, is that the reason the switch happened then?
No, I'd love to say it was outside influences. It was a series of really poor decisions on my part, which is the reality, and saw my career come to an end, and led to me having a really, really big think at that point. So yeah, I would have been 37 years old, and I guess had a bit of a sort of midlife thing at that point, and decided when that career came to an end, not entirely by my choice, but when that career came to an end, I decided to reinvent myself. Really wish I could say it was outside influences and something else went wrong, but no, it was a series of cock-ups by me, if I'm completely honest about it.
I mean, it's interesting that. So, because I've talked to a few people already who have said that they failed in this bit and they failed in that one. Like I spoke to someone who eventually sold a business, but almost went through 3 or 4 stages of things going wrong in certain bit of businesses, or hadn't gone the way they thought, and kind of just almost reinvented the business and pushed forward, and then reinvented it and pushed forward. And it seems like you're doing that with yourself. I mean, with that process where you think about another direction to go in, was there any like process to it, or were you just kind of deciding what's best for you, or like what was the process deciding what the next step was?
It was running away from rather than running towards something. I did make that decision that I never wanted to work for anyone else again. That was about as clear as my thinking was at the time. And I looked at a number of opportunities, and very patently, having worked in shoe shops and then estate agency broadly, my core skills over the years were people skills, selling skills as well. So the little franchise magazine, which turned out to be very unsuccessful for me, but it seemed like a sensible thing to do, which would work with my skills at the time. It wasn't, but it was the catalyst to me learning about what I really was good at, and ending up making networking a career now, which it really is these days.
So, talk about the magazine. You went from an estate agent to into the magazine and moving into the franchise magazine. What do you think the skills were that you picked? Like you said, it didn't quite work out for you how you wanted it to at that stage. Like, is it something you regret, or is it something that you say, I learned an awful lot and it kind of put me on this path, so it's something that I would definitely do again?
Yeah, it's not something that I regret, and I try to be that person these days who tries not to regret things. Because if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't I wouldn't have been at that event in London where I got asked to write the book. I wouldn't have got involved in networking in the way that I did. I thought that my local contacts and sales skills would be good enough for me to be able to run a successful local magazine. And I thought it would be a really lovely thing to do. My sons were quite young at the time. It would keep me local. The reality is that in a estate agency or in a shoe shop, your prospects, your potential customers come into you. If you're selling advertising space in a magazine, which was the business of the magazine, I had to go pushing doors. I had to walk in and out of shops and offices around Witney in Oxfordshire, where I live, trying to flog them advertising. And that's a really different skill to estate agency or working in shops where your potential customers have already expressed half an interest by walking into the shop. So that was the bit which I struggled with. The magazine actually only lasted 3 editions, but it was, I thought I had those skills, but it was subtly differently. Along the way, I decided to start going to some networking events in Witney because I thought that would put me in front of other business people as well, which it did. I still wasn't very good at selling advertising to them, which is what I should have been doing, but I didn't really understand networking at the time. But again, I don't regret those early days from sort of June 2007 onwards, because they then gave me the education in networking and allowed me to start building these national contacts, which I wasn't expecting, but then led my career in a completely different direction that I wasn't expecting at all.
No, that is really interesting, because I've had a similar experience where started something looking like, got a fair bit down the line looking like it was going somewhere, and then the last few months with what's going on, we had to change track slightly with what we were doing. And but it's interesting because the way I see it is, if you're moving forward and pushing yourself and picking up skills, time isn't wasted.
No.
Thing isn't wasted. And at the worst case scenario, I think I said this in another video, is like, if things got really bad and you had to go out and get employed or something like that, like, surely someone would love that someone who's gone out for themselves, pushed it for themselves, got that self-discipline, dedication. The magazine didn't go as you wanted it to, but you learned some skills from that. And you were starting to go to networking and thought that is going to be what you would like. So what sort of happened with that transition then?
Yeah, I was starting to go along to networking events, and then I found out about something called for networking, and went along to a for networking event in Oxford, as it goes. And the founders of for networking were both at that event in Oxford, because they were both involved in launching for networking into Oxfordshire. For networking had started in the southwest, and they asked me if I would help out in Witney. And so about a week after that, I ended up leading the group in Witney. Managed to get 16 people in the room from my local contacts. Ended up leading the group in Witney, still promoting the magazine as my business. But then, gosh, when was that? That was October 2007. By December 2007, I didn't just have the one group in Witney. I had 4 networking groups across Oxfordshire. and actually leading networking groups then started to become a bigger part of what I did. A couple of years later, I had 27 networking groups that I was leading for networking. And then 2011, they asked me if I'd become a director of the company, and I ended up being network director for England, Scotland, and Wales. So again, cutting a very long story short, from being asked to run one group for 4N in Whitney, I ended up running the operation across the country, and that it brought my leadership skills into place, my sales skills, I guess. But somewhere along the line, I'd found this huge affection and affinity with networking as a business activity, which again wasn't planned. It wasn't what I left school to do at all.
Yeah, when did it? This is because most people I've talked to, it's exactly like that. There's no like here to here to here to here, like in a standard sort of career path. In some people, it seems to be here, then went here, then tried this, and then ping pong around, and then suddenly found something, and all those skills they built up, they just like took off from there. So it went from one group to 4 groups. Was that the sort of time when you thought this could scale into something? This could be what I move into?
It was more, I'd love to sit here and tell your audience that I'm this incredible strategic thinker, but it was more that I was really enjoying it. That part of my life I really enjoyed. And there were tons of people at the time telling me that I was wasting my time, that I was building someone else's business. Ultimately, 4Networking is owned by someone else, and I'm a shareholder these days. I wasn't in those days, and it was more that I was enjoying that, and found that I really thrived in that environment. Really loved connecting other people. Really loved showing other people how to use this thing. Became pretty close to the owners of 4Networking at the time. And it's that really funny thing that if, we all make decisions every day, and we all like to think that those decisions are logical and so on. But I was making decisions at the time based on, I really love this. I'm enjoying this. It wasn't at the time the most financially sensible thing for me to do. But again, if I'd not made those decisions to run a networking meeting in Abingdon with only 5 people there, including me, to be getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to drive to networking events. If I hadn't made those decisions, I wouldn't have ended up being at the networking event in London with the guys from the publishers. If I hadn't made those decisions, I wouldn't be networking with a guy in Canada this morning. I would love to say that all of this was clever and strategic, but it had more to do with me just finding the thing that I loved, really. And that's a brilliant position to be in, I think. I'm still enjoying it now.
So when you got approached for the possible publication of the book, was that when you had gone from the 4 to the 27 networking groups? And so let's go for that bit first. Was that also relatively easy? It sounds like quite a big jump to go from 1 to 4 and then up to the 27 you're running.
Yeah, it all happened organically, as these things do. So, someone who came along to the networking group I was running in Whitney said, "Oh, could we launch this group in Abingdon? Could we do something similar in Abingdon, another Oxfordshire market town?" And so, I said, "Well, how do we do this?" And 4Networking said, "Well, you can lead it, and the other guy will run it on the day," and so on. And that happened again a few times, and then 4Networking grew at the same time. So when I joined 4Networking, there were 48 groups. Ultimately, we were running 5,000 meetings a year in the UK. And so as 4Networking grew, their corporate structure grew as well. So there became an opportunity called a regional leader, which I ended up being. And then I sort of worked out how to do that really efficiently and have 27 groups, 7 area leaders, whatever that is, about 100 team members, and I was leading them, and I worked out how to do that terribly efficiently. Actually, before Zoom and before video conferencing was a thing, we were doing a lot of stuff by teleconferences and so on. And then when the opportunity came, the 2 then directors of 4Networking asked me if I would like to get on my bike, their words, and lead the team in the whole of the UK, which was about 1,000 people at the time. So it sort of happened in real stages. Sort of cutting my teeth on one group, then the most difficult jump was the jump from one group to two groups. To run a couple of things is then leads you on to being able to do 4, being able to do 27, and ultimately being able to run 5,000 meetings a year, and still do most of that, based from home or in the car. So the jumps never felt that big, but I guess looking back in hindsight, I guess it probably looks that way to anyone outside it.
Yeah, I think it's, again, what I've heard a lot is taking a long time to find a winning formula, and then once you find that winning formula, just hit the accelerator and go, basically.
I think that's an incredibly important point, because at the same time, I started speaking at networking events. So I would be speaking at an event with 12 people, 20 people, 40 people, and talking about networking. I really should have a piece of paper to do these things, but in those days, I would be standing and literally shaking, holding a piece of paper when I was reading my presentation verbatim. Now I speak in front of thousands of people at various conferences and so on in the UK and Europe. And again, the jump was really getting it right in front of 20 people. That was more of a jump to me when I walked out on stage in front of 2,500 people, which has been my biggest audience so far. That wasn't as big a jump as the jump from 20 to 40 people, from 40 to 50 people. That was a really weird thing. It was getting that bit right in front of you don't spot all of the steps along the way, which is what makes it look like a bigger jump than it actually felt at the time.
Sorry, I lost you for 2 seconds and my internet just cut out. It seems to have.
Oh no!
Yeah, no. No, I think I kind of. Let me just make sure I'm still recording. Yeah, I'm still okay. Yeah, I kind of got the gist of that, because a lot of people are saying very similar things. Like, I found that as well. It's the hardest bit is going from 1 to 2, going from 1 customers to 2 to 3, whereas going from 100 or 100 to 1,000 is a lot easier, because kind of know what you're doing. So then with the book, then how did that kind of come about?
Yeah, I got into content quite early on, I guess. I got stuck into Twitter in 2008. Started learning about social media, learning about other social media platforms, and then started talking about networking and social media as a joined up thing. And to this day, I still constantly put content out there, including this. This will go on YouTube, and my name's associated with it. So this is a piece of useful content. I was speaking at bigger and bigger events. I ended up speaking at the business show in London at Excel, which is really quite a big event. And in the evening, all of the exhibitors and speakers and so on actually meet up for a social event. And a couple of the guys from Wiley came and sat at our table, and they'd been to see me speak earlier on in the day, and asked if I'd be interested in writing a book. Interestingly, maybe only interestingly for me, even if you get approached to write a dummies book, you're asked to submit a 5,000 word chapter for them to evaluate whether you'll be up to the task of writing the book. So that was the next step in that, actually writing them a chapter and then assessing whether I was good enough to do it. So a lot of people ask me, could I write a dummy book? It's not quite as simple as just pitching an idea to them. They need to know that you can write, and they need to know that you've got an audience that's going to buy the book. That's a big part of writing for those guys.
So, could you write, or did you have to learn the skills, or what?
No, writing was one of the skills that I seem to have grown up with. I'd written a lot of blogs and articles, up till that point, learning along the way what people like to read, what they got bored with, and so on. I'd started writing bits and pieces for other people as well. Before I was making money out of networking, people were asking me to write articles for them, to write stuff for their website and that sort of thing. So I knew I could write. Writing 5,000 words was a challenge, and ultimately the book is 100,000 words. So that turned out to be really quite a challenge. But I had the core skills there. I was able to write in the first place to be able to do it.
No, that is a really interesting story, and it's very interesting how at each stage of your life, whatever you were doing, all of those skills kind of built up into the networking bit that you're then able to accelerate. So I guess the final thing for, I guess, kind of people watching this, because hopefully there are people at all sorts of stages at the very start or midway through, or thinking about possibly changing careers completely like you did. What would be like the kind of three bits of advice that you'd have, the sort of three takeaway bits from your life story?
I would say lean heavily on the skills and experience that you've got. In 1983, I learned how to build rapport with people in the 20 minutes or so we had them in the shoe shop. And that was a big skill that I learned then. And if I can build rapport with people in a shoe shop when I'm a 13-year-old, those are skills that I'm still rolling out now, but still remembering some of the lessons and some of the stuff that I was taught back then. So look at the skills and experience that you've got and how you can bring that to bear in your fledgling business. You can learn stuff, but as I have certainly learned with the networking experience in my life, you're much more likely to learn it if you've got a true passion for what you're doing. So the skills, experience, and really enjoying what you're doing is important. Secondly, hardly surprisingly from me, build a network. Whether you choose to go to formal networking events or do it on LinkedIn or all of the informal networking events that exist all over the country, build a network, because you're going to need those people. You're going to need suppliers. In my business, I've now got two other guys who advise me on the bits that I'm really, really rubbish at, and they came from my network. So build your network. Allow yourself to build that virtual company of suppliers, advisors, confidence, people who can help you along the way. And the third bit of advice, which I'm talking about a lot at the moment, is don't hide the till. So many people go into business, go to an awful lot of trouble to showcase their services, to put themselves out there. When I worked in a shoe shop, on the ceiling there was a sign which said, "Please pay here." And in any fashion retailer, that sign's going to be there. So many people, I find, when they launch a business, then hide the till. They don't make it obvious how and where people can actually buy from them. And having gone through all of the effort of networking, marketing, and so on, that bit's absolutely vital. And it's more vital, I'm sure, than a lot of people who go into business actually make it. Those sales skills, which can be a dirty word, but those sales skills turn out to be vitally important. So lean on your previous skills and experience, build your network, and remember to show people where the till is once you've got the business working. Those would be my three.
All right, perfect, Stefan. Thanks a lot. That was a really, really interesting interview, and I love doing these, to be honest. Just hearing people's stories, and they're all so varied and different, and such as I said, varied experiences. But no, that was great. Thanks a lot for your time.
I enjoyed it. I'm sorry I've had to cut it a tiny bit short. I've got to absolutely stuff a sandwich now before I go into some work with an actual a client of mine at 1:45.
Absolutely no worries. Cheers, Stefan.
Good to talk. Cheers, Johnny.
All right, thanks.